Norma Hollis, the godmother of authenticity. Are you authentic? Do you know what that means to be authentic, to kind of hear your own voice? She's taken a long journey. She's a wonderfully magnetic, intelligent woman who has an incredible story. Started when she was 2. She talks about what's called walk-ins. She talks about changing her personality, getting frustrated with her parents at a particular point. Um, this was a fascinating conversation. I really enjoyed it. She has an assessment on her website where you kind of walk through it. I did take an authenticity assessment. Take a look in the show notes. I did get a 64 out of 90. I don't know what that means, but take a look at it. But um, orange elephants with red socks. What does that mean? You'll learn very shortly. Just a wonderful conversation about authenticity. Norma Hollis. You're going to really enjoy it. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic. I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Thanks. I really appreciate your time today. Why is it so important to be authentic?
Because that's who we are as human beings. We're born in such a way that we're given gifts and talents and purposes and stuff like that, and it's stripped of us. The longer we live in life, the more it's attempted to be stripped from us, and people lose it. And that's part, I think, of the great void that a lot of people feel in life. They follow the society's thing about just follow our instructions and do the job and do this, and we forget we're actually human beings, an individual. So I just did a program. I was on a program last week for Human Resources called Putting the Human Back in Human Resources. So authenticity is putting the human back into human beings, a similar thing.
So often human resources gets kind of a bad rap, but it's a very important role. So you have this fantastic journey where we should start when you're 2 because something remarkable happens there. But at 28, you found yourself living kind of the picture perfect world, but you were just unfulfilled.
Yes, I was flat. I became my parents' version of what a black woman should be in America, based on their vision, and I had to remind myself I wasn't an adult till I realized, well, they couldn't even vote until they were in their 40s because they were black, and then and they couldn't buy a house. My dad was on a GI Bill, so he bought one of the first houses in 1954, I think it was, when they allowed blacks to have mortgages. So, we think we've gone so far, but you think that in my lifetime, these things were still existing. And now the whole thing is coming back again. It's just amazing. So that's just from the black perspective, but there's every perspective. And I was young, I think it was just blacks that are persecuted. Every country has persecutes some race or religion or whatever their thing is. So more of us are persecuted than are not. So, and it requires our authenticity to step up. I always say, if the people lead, the leaders will follow. But we just got to stand up and lead. So that's my goal, to lead, not on the front lines with the guns, but on the front lines with the word and the message, and to wake
Mm.
people up, so that those who have the broader or different perspectives can, be inspired to do something about it. Because if we don't do anything, humanity is lost. We're at a critical point. I have a whole evolution of humanity perspective, and we're at a critical point in the whole history of humanity, and it's up to us to speak up and do something about it. That's why
I,
I think it's important.
Very much so. I was shocked when I heard you say that in 1954, I believe your father was a dentist, your mother was a teacher, you're there in Detroit, and they were only allowed to get a mortgage through the GI Bill, and you had a house like in a Jewish neighborhood, and it was a little bit of a shift there, and you talk about some of the some of the racism kind of indirect that you felt in school, like not putting name on your board and things like that.
You have done your research, haven't you? You know,
You're
I remember
fascinating.
I remember that very clearly. I think I was in the first grade, and we all had a chance to write our names on the board. And when she got to me, I didn't get I didn't get my turn. And
Mm.
I was smart in school. I got all A's all the way through school. And I guess that offended them too. I guess, but I did not know, obviously, that young, that was a racist, situation. I remember another teacher, Miss Skelly, in the sixth grade, and she was talking to us about people get to be 6 foot high. Well, what's 6 feet? I don't know. So I was putting my feet one on top of the other, trying to figure out, what are you doing? I have no reference for that. So how are you teaching me? You're not telling me, well, I'm five something, and I know I'm just 3 or 4 feet or whatever. So it was inappropriate. It was incomplete education.
And then something remarkable that I've heard you talk about. So at age 2, you talk about a walk-in. Please, can we talk about that?
Yes. I've always been told I'm different, but I've
Mm,
never understood. And I really just understood it on a deeper level just in actually the last 6 months, to tell you the truth. But when I was 2, I really had uh, full consciousness. Now, I didn't have the education that one has on the planet. And I was only 2, so I didn't know the language. But I do remember, before birth, receiving my assignment and coming to the planet, quite clear that I had something to do. I wasn't sure what it was, but I expected my parents to help me
hmm,
to figure out, this is what it is. This is why you're here. This is what you're to do. This is what you will prepare you for this. And I realized in this discourse with my father, a very short discourse, and he tells the story that he's teaching me my name.
right.
The name is Norma. Dear daughter, what's your name? And I'd say, my. He said, no, not my name, your name. Your name is Norma. What's your name? And I look confused. I told you my name. They told me who I am, and I'm trying to tell you,
Hmm,
and I'm telling you, and I really probably couldn't pronounce whatever. I don't know what I was trying to say. Later, I put me and I together for my, spelled M-I, not M-Y. But we had this discourse, and I don't remember how it ended, but I just remember I was totally frustrated. I said, golly, it's going to be hard on this planet because they don't understand me at all. What am
hmm,
I to do? I guess I have to do this thing by myself. And my mother tells the story. Well, now, when you research walk ins, and walk ins are energies, spirits, whatever, that enter a human being's body
hmm,
for whatever reason. Most walk ins come in as adults, and they're very clear that they're walk ins. I have 2 friends in particular. One had a program, and I spoke on her first annual conference for walk ins. And her name is Celeste. She goes by Blue Star. And she tells the story of how her family went to the beach. And she, as the family mother, went out to the ocean. But it was Blue Star that came back from the ocean.
hmm,
And her hair had all turned white just in that one discourse. And she and the family obviously didn't see eye to eye because she was another person, and that severed. I have another friend who I don't know if he's gone public with this, so I'm not going to mention his name, But in any event, he and his family, most of them and their families don't get along because they're generally adults. They generally have a life already established and they have an income source already established. And it may change, but these things are already intact. And as the new walk in, they also have consciousness of the person they were before, but they're just now different in terms of their personality. Well, for me, I didn't know any of that, and I didn't know that I was not like everybody else. So there is something that happens physically, is where I was going. So what happened with me physically is my mother's story is that when I was 2 years old, my hair changed overnight
Right.
because with black children, our hair is as straight as yours, or as not as curly and kinky as ours is. And mine was like that. And the challenge for black mothers is, what do I do with this hair? It's hard to put a
Mm.
comb through it, and now it's so different. We can do anything we want to with our hair. But you couldn't do that society wise, back then when I was a child. And she said she cried because she knew that she's going to have tangled hair the rest of my life, her life,
Mm.
with my hair. So that was the age of two, that realization. And I came out of it. I think I was in discord with that for about 3 years. I have a picture that I still have of when we were five. And my sister, who is just 11 months old, we were born in the same year. She in January, me in December. So this was Easter. And my sister and a girlfriend and myself were at this Easter party. And we're all dressed in our pretty dresses and our little bracelets and our little hair real cute. And my sister and my friend are looking at the Easter bunny going, "Oh, there's the Easter bunny." And I'm going, "It's just a man in a suit." But that's around the time that I figured that this battle is too big for me. And okay, I'll just be I'll just be Norma. If you're going to insist I'm Norma, won't call me by my name. Okay, fine. I'll just be Norma. And so that's when I just resolved to be Norma.
You mentioned at 2 when you realized that well, you kept on using the term "the planet," "this planet." Do you what do you visualize there? Do you visualize being outside of the planet and arriving to Earth? When you say "the planet," do you kinda mean metaphorically? What do you mean by "this planet"?
I mean, this planet versus any others out there in the galaxies. So I have memories of before birth, of being in a cocoon like something with a soulmate who ended up being my husband on this planet. And I was awakened and I was escorted down the hallway and taken to a room and told what my assignment is to be here on planet Earth. I was given some choices. Did I want the winter of my life first or last? And I wanted
Hmm.
the winter first so I could enjoy the summer. And I remember being given three choices for parents. One would allow me to do the job I need to do and get out quickly. The second would be kind of intermediate, and the third would take a lot longer, and it would be a lot harder, but it would have the biggest impact. And I picked that one. I remember somehow in my history that I didn't do something right in another lifetime or something. And so by taking the harder route, it would erase all of that
Hmm.
and put me at a better position. So that is a vision that I have held all of my life. I've told my parents about it many times. They never have ever understood or accepted me. In fact, at one point, I think my mother called in a distant family member to interview me to see who is this child? What is she? What is up with her? And I think the advice that they were given was to ignore it and I think the reason, which of course they didn't tell me, but in hindsight, I think they said that because it's too hard and it's too dangerous. You think of Dr. King and others that speak their mind in such a way,
Hmm.
and they don't they do or do not. I mean, I think Dr. King would have been like that middle opportunity.
Hmm.
Okay, that where you come in and make your impact and leave. And he's had massive success from that. But I chose the longer version, which is it has been really challenging, and it's been a very lonely. And walk-ins usually are lonely because they're not understood. I remember as a child, I was always called different. I remember a guy that I met. I guess I was in junior high or high school. You're different. What do you mean different? I don't know. I can't explain. You're just different. And now, then I went from different to strange, and now they call me weird. So,
Sounds like
whatever.
great compliments to me.
I think so too. It is, it's my life experience. It may not be yours. You may not
Yeah,
understand it, but I cannot deny
right.
my experience. So you can learn from it or not. It's up to you. But I can't deny, what, and you can't deny yours. No one. I mean, that's called, really being. That makes you crazy. No,
Mm.
you're not gonna make me crazy. I know what I know. What I know. So it
And,
has been confirmed a lot.
and when you explain to me like what happened, where you say you were in a cocoon like, status, you were open and you were guided down the hall and you were given these choices. So are you humanoid? Is it a hall like in a university? Is it celestial? Is it out of the planet? Like, can you kind of frame that for me?
I have always thought that it was heaven.
Hmm.
That has always been my understanding. After the instructions, I was escorted back to my family, whatever, and they asked me, "Well, where are you going? Where are you going?" And when I told them Earth, many of them said, "Oh my, it's hard down there." And some said, "I'm going with you. I'll help you." Some said, "I ain't going. Just call me if you need me. Just stay in touch."
Hmm.
So I remember that. However, that's always been my view. And I have this book of poetry that I wrote. And this was, I wrote these poems in my 20s. I did not understand them. I set them aside. I pulled them out 20 years later. I understood them more. I separated the ones that I thought were valuable and turned it into a book with 5 chapters. One is my commissioning, my assignment, if you will. Another one is spiritual awakenings, my awakening period, and then reality. It's always been a question to me. So, what is real? Whose reality? What's the perspective? And then it's destiny, and then it's Thanksgiving. Because a lot of what I was writing to myself was empowering myself for my destiny, which I'm still not exactly clear what it is, except that I know that my assignment is to help people understand God in new ways. The way we think God is not exactly how God is. That's what I understand is my assignment. And what I said when I got clear in the assignment, I said, "I'll do that, but you got to give me proof." Because I know about this world enough to I was old enough to know that the world is crazy or has crazy tendencies, and that if I go and say, "God sent me here to tell you this," yeah, right, okay, on one hand, and bang bang on another hand, depending on how it goes. So I said, I can't do that unless you give me proof. Well, I got the proof now, so I don't have an excuse anymore. So here it is.
Yeah, and that's where we get into the orange elephant and the red socks. But I think that it's so fascinating to me, and we'll get to that in a moment, Norma. But um, I've never had this kind of out of body. I guess I'll call it an out of body experience, but I don't know what the proper term is. Where you also talk about your husband and your soulmate, and I know what happened there, and my condolences. But it's it's fascinating to me that you can continue to revisit and it's still clear as day to you. Have you met others? I guess it really kind of falls into the walk-in community as well, which I'm unfamiliar with before learning about you. It's very fascinating to me. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, well, it is a growing community, and it's growing for one reason. There's 3 or 4 people that I have just in the last 3 to 6 months have come across. Um, I was invited by another podcast person who talks about Lisa Cherney, who talks about spiritual journeys, and she heard me on a presentation I did on some organization, and wanted me to be her guest. And it was on her show that I, for the first time, admitted I was a walk-in. I've never said it publicly. I
Hmm.
should say I've said it publicly when I first started speaking about 12, 20 years ago, but it was so received and scared people. And I said, that ain't time yet. So let me just hush up. But it's time now. So since then, I have come across multiple people. So I'm going to give you some names. One is Dolores Cannon. Dolores Cannon, she's no longer with us, but she has a book called The Three Waves of Volunteers. And through that, I recognize myself because I've always said that I was born 30 years early and that I
Hmm.
was born. And this is knowledge that I have that's part of my assignment that's coming from what I call my unseen supporters. That's my term for unseen supporters. So Dolores Cannon shares that the first wave of these not the first walk-ins, but the first wave occurred in after 1945. So I'm giving you like a real history lesson now from a whole different perspective. So in 1945 is when the atomic bomb hit, right?
Hmm.
And the unseen supporters that I'll get to who they are at the end of this, but they have councils, and there's more than one council, and they've been around for millenniums, and they made the agreement that they would not interfere with life on any of the planets. You know, we used to thought that the thought was that the Earth is flat. And now we know not only is the Earth round, but there are multiple planets in this, and we're in a universe, and the universe is in a galaxy, and there are many galaxies. So to think that we're all there is totally malarkey. So it's huge. It's huge. It's huger than any of us have any
Hmm.
ability to understand. So in that hugeness are these councils of energies that are like, I guess, the police of the galaxy, or maybe not police, but the observers or the reporters. You know, you always wonder, how can God be with all of us without having some help? So again, my job is to help people understand God in a new way. So thank you for the opportunity. So these councils got together, and after 1945, because the atomic bomb was dangerous, and it was the initiation of nuclear and other things that are happening now. And they said, well, we agreed we cannot interfere. However, what can we do? What we can do is put our DNA in human bodies. Okay? And so that's what they've been doing since the late 1940s.
Hmm.
And that was the first wave, the pioneers, of which I'm one of the pioneers. I was born in 48. I am one of the pioneers. I knew that. I knew that I was born 30 years early. I knew that I was born at it, and I went through things to help others understand understand whatever, and the ones that are coming. Um, then the second wave came in. They're in their 50s, 40s, 50s now, 50s, 60s, whatever. The second wave's role is more to be the intermediaries, to just be, so people could see them and they have a little extra powers and little extra abilities. But the third wave is the ones that are going to make a difference. That's some of the kids coming in now. The third, may have heard of crystal children or indigo children,
Hmm.
and that's these children. And they're coming in huge waves right now, and they have superpowers. I saw a picture of a TikTok someone sent of a baby in a diaper going upstairs with a bag on each arm, like grocery, not holding the rail, and talking
Wow.
to his mommy while he's walking. Okay, that's like an awful lot of multitasking for a child who can't be more than 2 years old to
Wow.
do. So, and he looked like he was maybe 18, 19, 20 months, not even quite 2 years old yet. But these children are coming in and they're educating their parents, for parents that will allow themselves to be educated, because parents always believe, I'm the parent, I know what's going on. But these
Hmm.
kids come in, they come in with a mission, they know why they're here. I learned about them in the late 80s, a gentleman named Joseph Chilton Pierce. And he wrote a book called The Magical Child many years ago. He recognized these children, and he talked about how you can recognize them back then, because they came in with a chain, their cranial, their brains. If you look at human evolution and look at the physical changes that we made over time, we're in the beginning stages of physical changes in the cranial, in the head. So these children come in and their foreheads are wider than their nose. So with
Wow.
me, it's flat, but with them, it goes more where the top of your hand is out. and they're putting more energy in the pineal gland, so that there's more spiritual connection. And then for some of them, it grows on this side. If you think about some of the alien pictures they have out there, that's how their heads are, because there is knowledge out there. We don't know how many times they burned the books. They're burning the books again now, right? So how many times before have they burned the books? Because all of this is not old knowledge. It's not new knowledge. It's old knowledge
Hmm.
that's been suppressed and hidden. So going back to the atomic bomb, that's when this group started, and the intent for those of us who have this shared DNA, and some of them are extraterrestrials, some of them are from the angelic realm, some of them know what planets they're from. They're planets like the Pleiadians, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, the Arcturians, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Sirius, um, Orion. There's a lot of different places that these people are coming from. Some of this you can get from Dolores Cannon. You can get her book from, I would suggest going to Audible and getting the Three Waves, the volunteers. And because on Audible, she was a hypnotist, and she would hypnotize these people who have had ET like connections.
Wow.
And so her audit, her book is about these hypnosis, and she has a male voice who's the client each time. So you can tell the difference of when she's talking and when she's hearing from somebody.
Wow.
And so by listening to that, it has had me thinking, because some of the things she talks about, one of they talk about going to the library. And I said, the library? Maybe that's where I went. And I remember going, I made a left turn and a right turn, and I was getting this information. And I remember looking at a wall and looking at, the future. I was told the first 50 years of my life and what it would compose. I wouldn't go beyond 50, because beyond 50 is when my husband was murdered. And I did not need to know that then, because then I would live that way. And I was always anxious. Will I get past 50? Will I get past 50? That was always an anxiety that I had. But these unseen supporters that I talk about in my life and I write about in my books and my work, I don't know, because another name to look up is Mary Rodwell. Mary Rodwell. She writes about the new humans. She goes around the world talking to parents and children who are these new children coming in. And she asked me the question when I did have a chance to talk to her, whether I have one unseen supporter or do I have a team? And I have a team. I don't know their names. She asked me their names. I don't know. I never asked them. I didn't know I could. I didn't even consider that. But I always refer to they. My friends know this about me because they're very much the same. They're not as they don't have the memory. I have one girl. We've been friends. We met at church where I met my husband. I saw her and I said, "That's her." And I went up to her and I said, "Hi," with my hand out. I said, "Hi, I'm Norma, and we're supposed to be friends." She said, "Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Tracy." So I asked her decades later, "What did you think when I said that?" She said, "I thought we're supposed to be friends."
Hmm.
And we've been best of friends. We may not talk for months, and it's just like nothing has changed. And she often says we're the same person in different bodies,
Wow.
which many of us are in many ways. So anyway, now that we have current let me just back up a minute. I did the research for my TV show and found out that in the late 40s is also when more extraterrestrials were observed,
Hmm.
particularly in Russia, and that's research. That's also when more walk-ins started coming in. I have more things I've written, and I don't remember right now what they were, but a number of things related to this started occurring in the late 40s. So that validates, in my mind, the 1945 with the atomic bomb and the things that needed to be done. So the current one of the ladies that is written is a book by Sheila Seppi, Seppi. And so I bought that book right away because she did interviews with a lot of people, 15 people who consider themselves to be walk-ins, and she also interviewed a number of people, including Mary Rodwell, who are professionals in this whole industry, in this whole body of knowledge. And I read it voraciously, and I found a lady there whose experiences were just like mine. I had an orange marker and a yellow marker, a yellow what I want to remember, and orange. Ooh, that's my experience. That's my experience. So hers is like filled with, and we talked and we've met. And so she had a message on her website that, and from February, that she received from her unseen supporters. And she too is she considers herself from the angelic realm as well. And in that message, she says that the powers that be, the unseen supporters, they're considering whether or not they're going to interfere with the potential nuclear threat that we're facing right now. So for humans not to be scared and to be alarmed, because they are paying attention and they have plans. Because the deal is, if they mess with Earth, the impact that impacts other planets and maybe even galaxies, I mean, who knows?
Hmm.
They don't want that to happen. So they are positioned, and I don't know. I don't talk. I mean, if they talk to me, I don't recognize it. But if I have a team talking to me and guiding me, and I always been talking to them all my life. And then okay, y'all, what you want me to do now? What's the next assignment? How are you going to help me? And if I don't follow, because what my problem is, I move too fast. And okay, here I go. And if I go too fast, they stop me. I remember I was coming down the stairs, going to the market, and fell. And I tell people I didn't fall, I was pushed, and my foot hit onto my stair and broke my foot.
Huh.
And I was laid up for 6 months. And so, okay, fine, I get it. I slow down, slow down. I couldn't drive a car. I couldn't put any pressure on it. And I live on 4 levels. I had to stay on the fourth level. That's where the bathrooms are. So, it was that was life for a few months. And then 2 years ago, or maybe 2 years, that was 2014, 2019, same thing. I'm moving too fast. I'm running, and I don't generally run. This girl said, if you do this, you'll whatever. And so I run 1 block. I got like 50 steps, fell, broke my arm, for a right arm, I can't write. So I got to slow down. So I've had another experience that slowed me down for about 3 years. And now I've been assigned to get up and go. And
Hmm.
I made that decision about 2 weeks ago. And in 2 weeks, every day something's happening. Every day. It's like it's time. The gates now have opened and said, you've done your work, you've got your proof, you prepared for it. You're going on this stage, you're going on that stage, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're going on Joey's show, you're doing this, I didn't know we are going to talk about this. So I guess that's them saying, here we go, Norma. So here we go. I'll pause there and let you have your turn.
Yes, there's so much, and it's so fascinating. Going back to this walk-in, you mentioned that Celeste went in the water as Celeste came back out as Blue Star. Her hair changed. You had something similar at 2 years old. Can you just what are some of the other examples? What are when you remember vividly all this happening at 2 years old, and you in your physical body, did it change? Did your emotions change? Did your personality change?
I think my personality changed because I got upset. I got pissed. Y'all don't understand me.
Right.
You're not helping me. So I'm sure I was a little defiant. They call the twos terrible twos. My education's in early childhood, child and family life sciences, and they always call the twos. Well, heck yeah, it's terrible. You don't understand me. So of course I'm going to get upset because you don't
Mm.
understand me. I'm trying. Wouldn't you be upset?
Hmm.
You're trying to. I got the knowledge here. Is up here in my brain, and I'm trying to give it to you. And now you don't. You're not even trying to understand me.
Wow.
You don't understand that you can understand me if you just try. So it was just, of course it's frustrating. I'm sure it changed me somewhat. Yeah. I also got changed at 8. We haven't got to 8 yet, but that's when I had this terrible thing in my ear.
That's
That
right.
changed me. That changed me big time. Anytime you get feeling like acid in the inside of your head, of course it's going to change you. So yeah,
Yeah,
those.
your parents had to tie you down. You were allergic to the antibiotics, and it stayed with you for quite a while.
I had ear infections for 55 straight years, sometimes more
Wow.
than once a year. I always took antibiotics, usually oral antibiotics. I took oral antibiotics for 40 straight years. My body was totally, the ecology of my body was totally changed. But I also found out that these people who are like me in the first, second, or third wave, we have special diets. We're mostly vegans, and I've changed my diet so many times that I am pretty much vegan now because my body won't tolerate anything else. I remember one day I cooked a turkey for my family and I could not eat it. because I had to stop eating meat. One of my first assistants, my first secretary many years ago, you have the strangest diet. You change up all the time. She'd always say, every time I think I understand you, you change up on me. Now, also, the other thing is that I've had many walk ins walk in and out of me. So, this book of poetry that I wrote speaks to that because it was happening very actively around that time. And many of them walked in and out to write my authenticity process, the program that has 9 dimensions where I studied human nature from personal, professional, and spiritual perspectives for 30 years. Well, they were walking in and out of me, guiding me and directing me because I had the experience and then I wrote about it, and they would guide me all the way around.
Hmm.
And then when I finished writing it, I told my operations manager now that I said, they just said, my work is done. I'm out of here. And
Wow.
they left. And then a new group came in. So that's all right. But yeah, they've been switching up. I've been totally accepting of it. It's frustrating sometimes because unlike the walk-ins that came in as adult that had income sources there, I never really had an income source. I was thinking today that as long as I've been in business, which has been now for 25 years, I've never had an investor. It's always been just me and my credit cards and God and a whole
Hmm.
lot of hope and prayer.
Hmm.
So, but they remind me, you've never been without a house. A mortgage has always been paid, and it's been a mortgage, not rent. And I've always had a car, and I've never missed food. I might have missed some trips or and some other things that some people find are great. But I also learned recently that there's 2 types of happiness. There's hedonic happiness, which is pleasure from things you've spent your money and it's not long lived. And there's eudaimonic happiness, which is based on purpose and meaning and is long lasting. And that's the happiness that I live with.
When you were writing this poetry and you had these walk-ins, could it also be perceived as just, as artistic kind of muses that artists encounter and helped you? I mean, how much of that guidance, the poetry, was you, and how much it was these walk-ins or these muses?
I don't know. I really don't know the definition of muse. I've heard the term many times, but I do believe that all of us have a certain level of creativity, some
Mm.
of us more than others. And those of us that make the choice to allow our creativity to guide us and lead us are, are clearly the ones who are part of, like me, and whether they realize it or not. Um, One of the books that I want to refer to, another one is Pendulum, and that's by a guy named Michael Drew. And this is not on the esoteric side. Michael Drew is a literary agent who has probably 100 books now on the New York Times 100 top 100 list, whatever.
Mm.
But he and his writing partner researched human nature for 3,000 years. And they say that we have a pendulum shift every 40 years, that we go from 40 years focusing on me and how great I am and what I can do by myself. And then we get tired of that and we go to we and how great the we are. But the point that I want to make is he says that the entrance of each cycle of the pendulum is brought on by the musicians. And he went back, and I'm not a music, that's not one of my gifts, so I don't know all the music he's talking about. But the current cycle we're in started in 2003, and I don't know what the music was then.
Hmm.
So around 2033 or 43 rather, when this 40 years is over, you're going to start looking around 2033, 35, because that's a 10-year transition to the next round.
Hmm.
But by 2043, the musicians will be telling me what's next. And I think the artists tell you that also. They come next. They're drawing it. They're getting the images, and they're showing it in the art. The music is more widely, it's shared, so you get it that way more. But yes, I do think that they have walk-ins also. I think I call myself an artist, but I'm an intellectual artist
Hmm.
because I write programs. I don't do art. My art teacher in 6th grade told me I'd be a great artist if I applied myself. And I said, no, God has something else for me to do, but I'm going to marry an artist. And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I did marry an artist. So,
You were spot
yeah.
on. And then you were presented with some kind of with some destination, with some kind of purpose, but you questioned it and you wanted proof. And I alluded to that before, the elephant and the red socks. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, when I was 8 and 9, again, that's when I had this hole in my eardrum. It came from a cold from my weak eustachian tube. And the antibiotics did not work. They either gave me hives or they just didn't work. So then I had to go in the hospital to do a culture on the ear. They couldn't do a culture at the lab at that time. And they only found one thing that would work, and it had to be applied topically in the doctor's office. And when they did, it felt like acid on the inside of my head,
Mm.
and I had to go back and have it done again and again. And that was followed by very persistent earaches. They called doctors. The doctors, they give me pills, drops, shots. Nothing would stop the pain. I was in Buffalo, New York, visiting my grandparents, and the earaches came. And at that point, I was so frustrated. I said, the men doctors can't help me. Can you find a woman doctor? And they did, and she couldn't help either.
Oh.
But then my grandfather, and then my mother says, call Papa, who's a Baptist minister. So he took me in a room and he put me on the bed and we talked and he told me that God must have something important for me to do to give me so much pain at a young age. And would I do it? And I said, can I ask God of one thing first? And he said, what's that? I said, can I ask God to give me the training for what I'm supposed to do before? And I said, before I'm 30, or by the time I'm 30, so I can have a life of my own. And he chuckled just for a split second. And then he said he's sure God would do that. And then he prayed over my ear, and I went to sleep and never felt that level of pain again.
Wow.
And by the time I was 30, I figured this is what I'm doing. I'm directing Head Start programs. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But God's sense of humor, the training actually started at around 30. It didn't end then. So
Mm.
that's the 30 years of training. But in any event, with all the pain that I had, my parents, as no, they were engrossed in their life. Dad was trying to feed his family of four, and mom was trying to be the socialite in the community. And I was interfering, not interfering, but it was, it just, they didn't have the understanding. And that's when these voices started speaking to me. And I said to them, if you're the voice I should listen to, you got to prove it to me. So in the next week, let somebody walk by me with red socks and let somebody else mention the word elephant in a conversation. And if those things happen in a week, then I'll believe you, maybe. And sure enough, that happened. And then I asked again and again for different things over the next 4 or 5 weeks, and they kept showing up. And they said, "Do you believe us now?" And I said, "Yes." And so that began a very intimate relationship I have with my unseen supporters. So, what you asked? You asked me about the proof. Oh, the elephant. So, the Red Sox and elephant. Thanksgiving Day 2014, about then, a friend comes to my house for Thanksgiving wearing red socks. I said, "Oh, that's interesting." I said, "Well, let's see if I hear the word elephant in a week, and if I do, then it must mean this, whatever." And I heard the word elephant on Family Feud, which I do watch occasionally. I said, "Well, it's not really personal, but maybe that works." But then the following Thursday, a friend had a presentation and I went to it. And she talked about how we get stuck in our ways like an elephant's tail. You put it on a stick and he goes in a circle and never leaves that circle. I said, there it is. There's the confirmation. But the real confirmation
Mm.
came, I may have already had it, but I didn't realize it until June of 2019. I was about to do a live event with people I had trained in my process. And I have this orange is my branding color. And I went to my body of orange things to see what I'm going to take with me at this trip. And this elephant, this gift was looking at me that my husband had bought me several years later. And he told me that I don't know why I bought this, but I just had to buy it for you. I couldn't walk
Wow.
by without buying it. So here it is. I said, thank you. And I wasn't in that mindset at the time. So I just put it with my orange things. But that day in June 19th, 2019, or thereabouts, I looked at that gift and I said, and it said to me, I'm your mascot. I'm your mascot. And I looked at it and I said, oh my gosh, you are orange. You are an elephant. and you have red socks on. I mean, how amazing is that? I have to show you. I don't know if your audience can see or not, but there he is.
Wow.
Orange
Wow.
elephant with red socks. Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing.
So that's my mascot.
Oh, fascinating. So I took your authenticity assessment.
Okay.
I got 64 out of 90, and I'm not, it's subjective. I don't know how if I answered it, I was honest with it, but you have this grid that you kind of alluded to before, and this is 30 years of research. And there's an inner voice you talk about, an outer voice, and expressive voice, and then of course there's what you think, what communication, what you do, and I like to go over them for our audience so they can dive deeper. But the real kind of three questions you want people to ask themselves is, what am I going to wear? What am I going to eat? What time is it? And that response that you hear from yourself will really dictate how authentic you are. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, it's not how authentic you are. That relates only to the first dimension
Ah,
of the grid. And the first dimension is intuition. And
right.
intuition is the foundation. Inner voice is the birthplace of your authenticity. And what I tell people, I ask people, how intuitive do you think you are? Whether you feel you are intuitive. Whenever I do a presentation, how many of you think you're intuitive? They raise their hand or they don't. And I tell them, I can tell that every one of you are intuitive
Hmm.
and that you talk to yourself. Huh? And I know that by looking at you because you came here with clothes on. And
Hmm.
so they laugh, of course. And I say, because there are three things you ask yourself every day. You ask yourself, what time is it? What am I going to wear? What am I going to eat? Everybody asks those questions every day, sometimes multiple times a day. Time with more than eating multiple times a day.
Hmm.
And you always answer. So if you examine how the answer comes to you, then you have a clue of how your inner voice speaks to you, how your intuition addresses you. So does it come as a thought, as a feeling, as a rolling through the rushes? Is it in your gut, in your arms? Is it a memory? Is it a taste in your mouth? I give an example of this dress, this suit that I bought. It's a beautiful orange St. John suit. I had just lost 30 pounds, and I went to the resale shop to see what I could find. And this orange size 8 suit fit like a glove, and I'd never worn a size 8 before. And I bought that suit, and I knew I looked good. And that suit is dirty. I can't get it clean. It's the sleeves have frayed, but I will not give it away
Hmm.
because I wear it with jeans any day because it makes me feel wonderful. And when I feel that kind of wonderful, that's when I pay attention because I feel my spirit is talking to me. My voice is talking to me. So when you get that kind of connection, you get more clarity, uh, because clarity is what we seek in life. Life clouds us with values that are not our own, with objectives that are not really true to us, with paths of life that don't necessarily fit who we are and what we're here to do, and we don't know other than to buy it hook, line, and sinker, and we do, and that's when um, things don't work and we get confused of why did I followed the rules like I was 28. I did what you said. You told me to get married. I got married. You told me to get a good job. I did. You told me to get a nice car. I did. You told me to marry somebody with money. I did. I did all those things, but
Hmm.
I ain't happy. This is not it. But I didn't have babies, and I did have a property, but you can sell those. But I didn't dig my roots in deep enough that I couldn't leave, and I did. And that's one thing I'll say about my life, difficult that it's been. I have never been um, mm, bought by anybody or anything.
Hmm.
I never worked for a corporation. They didn't buy me because they buy your time. They buy your life. They call you. They need. My girlfriend worked for NBC News. They call. She runs. They pay you good, and you can depend on it. But you lose a lot of other things. So my life is very idomanic, as I mentioned before, because I took the path of purpose and meaning, and that's different than the path of the money. So you pay a price for it, but you also gain something from it too. So,
And in your inner voice, you have intuition, you have integrity, you have inspiration. These are all things you have inside your inner voice.
yes, they're all a part of you. Your integrity, your value system is. each dimension is very important. But one of the questions I ask people when I go around or on Zoom and talk to people, and I'll ask your audience too, is what is one value that as a society we all agree on?
Hmm.
And nobody can answer that. Nobody can find one. They'll say love, empathy, compassion, but I always bring up drug traffickers, and not so much, or human traffickers, more human traffickers. Where's the compassion in that? Not in the women that you're trafficking. There's no compassion there. And I think that's what we're missing a lot in the world. I think that's why Ukraine is successful, because they have one value: you're not taking my land,
Hmm.
no matter what. I'll die for it. You're not taking my land, and that's a value that they're living by. So I try to encourage families and organizations and teams to find a value that they can all rally around, because that there's strength in numbers when when you have the same value. If you think about your friends are friends because you share values, and the ones you no longer have, the exes, the ex-wives, husbands, friends, whatever, probably because there was a values conflict. That's how important values is. And when you know your values, you make better decisions, because you know you're clear on what's right and wrong for you. So you make better decisions. So that's why values and integrity is important.
Where does religion and authenticity they seem to kind of converge when I hear you talk. Can an atheist still be authentic?
Absolutely. And I do not consider myself religious. I do consider myself very spiritual,
Spiritual, sure.
because I did work for the Catholic Church for a few years. And during that period, I did a lot of research, and I found documentation of 31 different interpretations of the Bible. And anytime I don't know languages, but I've seen languages interpreted, and two people in the same interpretation could have a different meaning for it.
Yeah.
And so I think the Bible, and I also, as a Black woman, recognize that, or have heard and researched that the time that the King James Bible was written in the 1600s was when they were transporting slaves.
Hmm.
And so the Bible was written for the control of the slaves. I was in Washington, D.C. once, staying with a friend and at her speaking engagement with a few other people, and there was a white man there who was talking about his Greek Orthodox religion. And wasn't it a wonderful thing that we gave the slaves the Bible so they could know God? I
Wow.
said, dude, they had their own religion. They didn't need the Bible. They had an intimate connection, not an intellectual connection. I remember working for the Catholic Church, and I know, I respect it entirely, but the comments that they gave me were very difficult, because I was still in my own, figuring it out. And one thing they said to me was, I'm not supposed to ask them what do they think. I'm supposed to tell them what they're supposed to think.
Wow.
I said, what? I've since learned that this was just the people there, not the religion itself.
Mm.
And then they also told me, these same people, that my view of God was too broad for the Catholic Church. Well, I thought Catholic meant universal. How can I be broader than that? Maybe you guys are too narrow. Anyway, that was a 3-year job, and it didn't last long. And I did not like it, because it put me in a box, and I'm not in that. I don't. God's not in a box that I know of. I went to another church, and they wanted that I thought about joining with a friend of mine, and their training. The first thing the guy said was, "Oprah's going to hell." Huh? Why? Well, because on her show she said there's many paths up the mountain, and her path should only be Jesus. Well, but hold on a minute. Um, there's God has all these flowers. They're all flowers. They're all different colors. They're all different types. So isn't the same with people? In this church, we only honor Jesus. What about the Dalai Lama? They go through all this research to find out who's bringing the message again. Where is he? In this church, we only follow Jesus Christ. And I mean, with due respect, that's such closed thinking, and that's part of my role to share that God is not closed up. He's
Right.
all open and broad, or he or she or it, whatever. But the energy that is God is shared with all of us in ways we don't even understand. We've never seen God or connected, but it's bigger and broader. And we thought the world was flat. So whatever you may be thinking, you might be narrow and just, be a little broader. So we know now that in my lifetime, we found out there's galaxy. We didn't know that before, so what are we going to find out in the next lifetime? There's so much, and all the books have been burned. They keep
Mm,
burning the books, which is a disservice because when they start telling the truth, people are going to freak out.
that's right. You know, on the podcast, we talk a lot about discipline. I lost a lot of weight when I was younger. I started a business. I got to 340 pounds. The doctor said, if you don't lose your weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. I had a kind of come to Jesus moment, and I just changed the way I did everything as far as, exercise. I kind of went back to what I know, and I lost 130 pounds. And when people ask me today how I did it, they want some kind of quick answer, and the quick answer is discipline, discipline and focus. I just prioritized and got discipline. Does discipline play a role in authenticity?
Yes, it's not easy to be authentic because you give up a lot of the things that the world thinks you're supposed to have. I'm just out of a 3-year relationship that I had with a gentleman that was really, really, really nice guy. We really, um, it was comfortable, but part of the problem was that um, his comment was that you believe it's not important that I believe what you say, but that you believe what you say. And
Mm,
that's just not enough for me. Because if we're going to be in a relationship, I want you to believe, have a deeper level of belief. And he also said he did not know what his purpose and never thought about his purpose. How can you be around me for 3 years and never think about your purpose? I don't get that. And
mm.
his friends definitely call me weird. She's just weird. Well, fine. I'm about to get weirder, so this is not going to work. So, but that's a discipline. I mean, it's for me. I've lived what I call a very austere life because I haven't gone for the hedonic way that most people live their life. I mean, this gentleman, while very nice and very resourceful, I look around. I have lots of things he's given me over the 3 years, but I never wanted things. It's
Mm.
not what I wanted. That's what he offered, and of course I accepted them. But I look around, it's like, so what am I going to do with it? I got no room for it. I mean, it's like things like that. They're practical things, I think about. So it's been very austere because the things that turn most people on just don't turn me on. And it does make relationships more difficult. I mean, I've had 2 husbands. The second husband I did meet at church, a Catholic church, and that was the one in the cocoon with me.
Mm.
So, but there were other problems because with 2 of us with a cocoon mindset, we got to get on the planet, because the planet's not about cocoons. It's about walking around and making some money, and paying the bills and stuff like that. So, but as they have always told me, I don't have to worry about money unless I choose to. And I try to choose not to. And when I don't worry about it, it's a lot easier. It flows better. But like I said, I've never been without a car, and I drive a very nice car, and I've never been without a place to live, and I've never missed a mortgage payment. So I mean, what's to complain? There is none.
Have you considered yourself a disciplined person, even with walk-ins as a child of kind of these out of body experience? Have you ever considered yourself with a deep self-discipline?
My longest friend since junior high school calls me the most disciplined person she's ever known.
Wow.
So, and she even goes back at my 70th birthday party. My sister came and she got up there and said how I partied my way through school, through college, because when I came to visit her, I partied the whole weekend. And my girlfriend was there, and she stood up and she says, "Judy, you got it all wrong. This girl was always in the room. I got to study. She was always studying. I was the one partying." So she cleared that up. So yes, I've always been very. I even tell men, as I told the one I just told you about, my number one priority on the planet is doing this that I need to do, and nothing will stop me from it. I'm not going back where I came from, not having accomplished or at least done my gosh darn best to do what it is they keep telling me I need to do. So, so that takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of saying no. I
Mm.
have friends that went to the Hollywood Bowl on Sunday to watch the I had 3 opportunities to go. I turned them all down because I had something to do. I had to put my green screen up because I got something else that's coming up, and that's really I'm having fun doing that. I don't need to be out there, spending money, for 3 hours and then go through all the crowds to get there, and for what? I'm fine. I'm fine. I don't. I've learned. Uh, well, like my friend says, I've learned to manage. I learned to manage my life, my resources, my mission. I manage it well and still, um, and live a very. I enjoy my life. It's not for everybody, but it's definitely for me. I mean, I crafted it, so it's mine. I claim it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And when you walk people and organizations, you have everything's available up on your website with great content, Norma. But when you walk people through the grid, to the kind of the 9 dimensions that you talk about, um, is discipline required on their behalf to pursue and to follow?
I don't use discipline in my language with them.
Hmm.
I've never used the word discipline with them. They create their own discipline. They
Hmm.
create their own awareness through the process of my live training is the 11-week program where they talk to some of my teammates. I've trained people and they're teaching the class. And they spend a day on each one of the 9 dimensions and how it applies to their personal life because as a society, as humans, we are so on the rat wheel. We are so following, especially in our 20s, we're just figuring what we're supposed to do. But by 30 and 40, and often 50, we're on that rat wheel. We're chasing the money, we're chasing the big car, chasing the position, we're chasing this and chasing that, and making our kids smart and doing right and doing what they say. And so some people have called that obedience. The other interview that I had from the girl that I talked about walk-ins told me that she felt I have a different kind of
Hmm.
obedience to my assignment. And she said people on her calls that she interviewed usually have obedience to society's rules. And I'm saying that to be authentic, you got your own personal rules. And they may not be in alignment with society's rules. And which is really more important to you? Which do you really want to say at the end of the day, when you go to your judgment day, which rules do you want to say you follow? The ones that society gave you or the ones that your spirit gave you that maybe someone told you not to believe in, but which are really very, very important and really a part of who you are. So that's to me obedience and discipline to the assignment, and not letting all the hedonic things of the world detract me from the things that I'm sent to do, which are not so hedonic.
It I love the way you bring obedience into discipline. I've talked to so many people. Nobody has once brought up that phrase, that word, and you could draw a straight line with obedience and discipline. That's a great connection. That's well said. Norma House, what motivates you?
Going back to where I came from and being congratulated for the job I did.
Hmm. So then, how do you measure success?
I don't know that I'm not trying to measure it. My friends already tell me I'm very successful. I haven't gotten the financial success that I feel is coming one day, but I've touched a lot of people and changed a lot of lives and impacted people. And I've taught people my system and they're out there training it now. My bigger goal is to get out there in the world. I'm now getting I'm speaking at the first metaverse gathering of speakers, the first ever, September 30th to October 2nd. It will be broadcast all over the world. Every country in the world is going to have an opportunity to see my avatar
Wow.
speaking. And so it's coming true. So all I needed to do was be patient, follow the instructions, um, not don't break any more bones, and be obedient and just follow instructions and not get anxious and just trust. And it's a high level of trust, a high level of trust and faith.
Well, I hope that people that listen to you speak get as much enjoyment as I do out of talking to you and learning about you. I really, really appreciate your time today. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, LinkedIn is a really good place, and particularly if you do, then let me know that you came from this show. I get a lot of LinkedIn requests. Most of them want to sell me something, so I ignore
Mm,
most of them. So please, if you reach out, let me know that you heard me on Joey's show, and then we'll create a conversation. If you want to know about, I have a new program that I just launched earlier this month that I'd like to send people to. And this is my online training in the 9 dimensions of authenticity that will take you deeper into yourself to understand yourself in a deeper way. And it's at authenticityu.com. And you just go there, and there's a beautiful sales page, introductory landing page to tell you about it.
yeah, it's
And if
nice.
you're interested, reach out to me. And then the other thing you can do, if you don't do LinkedIn and don't want to go to Authenticity U, then you can send an email to coaching@normahollis.com.
And we'll make sure to put those all in the show notes. Norma Hollis, just a wonderful time, wonderful pleasure talking with you today. I really appreciate your time. And I know you're in the greater Los Angeles area. My daughter that just graduated Cal State. If I'm in the area, maybe we'll get a cup of coffee.
That'd be wonderful. I would love that. Please do.
Thank you so much. You be well, and I hope to see you soon.
And you too. Thank you so much, Joey. I've appreciated it.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations.